I begin this video by admitting that I'm not a scientist, and I don't have the time to do the amount of research I want for this video. Ideally, this would turn into a 7-hour long video or a documentary series, definitely a book. Perhaps one day I will do all of that. But, in case a plane or an asteroid falls on me before I get the chance to do that, I wanted to put this idea out there as it is. You're more than welcome to expound upon this idea. I definitely cannot claim it as my own, although I've never really heard anyone string together all of these different scientific ideas slash theories and put them together in such a way, in the way I have. I'm not saying it hasn't been done, but I haven't seen it personally. So I also know that I may very well get tons of people disputing and criticizing the ideas I share here, if enough people actually watch this video, and that's fine. Just know I probably can't scientifically debate you in the comments section as thoroughly as you might like because of the reasons stated above. But if anyone wants to leave sources in the comments section that support or dispute this argument, you are encouraged to do so. Now, allow me to briefly explain this line graph. The x-axis, or the vertical line, represents all of space and time. Imagine that this line stretches on an incomprehensible length, as it represents all of space and time. Every point on the x-axis represents a planet with intelligent life somewhere in the vastness of space and time, with the point on the farthest left representing intelligent life on Earth, us. I've abbreviated intelligent life on other planets into IL on other planets. The y-axis, or the vertical line, represents the technological progress of the intelligent life of each planet. Imagine that this also stretches on an incomprehensible length, and you'll see that at the top of this line is omniscience and omnipotence, including transcendence of space and time. For the sake of the thought experiment that this video is proposing, imagine that we cannot comprehend the limit to technological progress, and so, because of that, we imagine the highest possible cap that we can, that being omniscience and omnipotence, including transcendence of space and time. If you don't know what omniscience and omnipotence mean, omniscience is the concept of having all possible knowledge there is to have, and omnipotence is the concept of having all possible power there is to have. Also, transcendence of space and time essentially means you aren't restricted by space or time, meaning you can travel forward or backward or even outside of time at your leisure, and you can manipulate and control space or matter however you want. This would essentially enable true immortality and indestructibility. With that being said, let me begin with the first point of why I believe evolution and abiogenesis prove the inevitability of God. Point number 1, we exist. We are intelligent. Even if you only believe in the current secular understanding of the origin of humanity, including evolution and abiogenesis. This isn't that hard to wrap your head around, although, at the same time, maybe it is. We exist. That's mind-blowing. The fact that we have the ability to even have thoughts like this, that's mind-blowing. The nature of our existence is not the subject of this video, nor are thought experiments like, maybe we're living in a simulation and we're made of code, ones and zeros. The reason I even bring that up is to help you understand that out of the numerous potential theories, beliefs, and knowledge we have about our existence and origins, the ones I am focusing on for this argument are evolution and abiogenesis. I am not saying these concepts are only theories. I'm aware there is a mountain of evidence for these concepts, but with that being said, I do not pretend to be a scientist. I am also not trying to purport these concepts as absolute fact exactly how they are presented by many, if not the majority of scientists, as I know there are many scientists who don't purport the same thing either, and they have more nuanced theories. Plus, scientists don't know everything. But I personally believe that it is evident that evolution and abiogenesis played a significant role, to say the least, in the development of life and intelligent life on Earth, us humans. Now, don't even ask me about artificial intelligence. It clearly is not the same as us conscious, fleshy humans. As for future iterations of AI, how it may evolve, I just can't say. If you want to delve deeper into AI, evolution, or abiogenesis, you'll have to do your own research. For the sake of this video, accept the truth that we exist as intelligent life, and even if you do insist that abiogenesis and evolution is where our origins lie, that doesn't in any way disprove any of the points I'm going to make in this video, at least in my opinion. Which brings me to point number 2. Given all of space and time, which is incomprehensibly vast, and that we exist, other intelligent life must have existed, does now exist, or will exist in the future. This one is also not that difficult to wrap your head around. If we assume that single-cell organisms came about from abiogenesis, and then those single-celled organisms evolved to become multicellular organisms, which eventually evolved to become us, then there is no reason to assume that out of all the planets throughout all of space and time, we are the only intelligent life in the entire universe. According to this article, there may be tens of billions of planets around the size of Earth that are within the proper distance from their respective stars, which have similarity to our Sun, which means they are not too close or too far, so as to potentially support life as we know it. And that's just in our galaxy. This means that even if 1 out of a billion of these planets has intelligent life, that would mean that in our galaxy alone, there could be about a dozen civilizations with intelligent life. That means that if only 1 out of 100 galaxies has one intelligent civilization, that would still mean there could be billions of civilizations throughout the observable universe. According to this article, there could be about 2 trillion galaxies within the observable universe. So let's say 1 out of 100 galaxies has a civilization. That would mean that within our observable universe, there could be about 20 billion civilizations. And that's just within the universe that we can observe, that we can see. I haven't even talked about the age of the universe. According to Wikipedia, the universe is estimated to be about 13.8 billion years old. But I found an article that suggests the universe could be 26.7 billion years old. I'm not going to delve deeper into this in this video, but suffice it to say, the universe is incomprehensibly ancient, and I haven't even looked into how old the universe will be until the theorized heat death takes place, trillions of years from now. You could go further down this rabbit hole if you like, but for the sake of this video, I'd say this sufficiently supports this point. Point number 3, it is audacious to assume that we are the most technologically advanced intelligent life throughout all of space and time. For this point, let's look at the estimated age of humanity from a secular lens. It is widely agreed that humanity as we know it is theorized to be about 300,000 years old. Take this article, for instance. Now consider the growth of technology. Even if the growth of technology was one continuous, gradual process from 300,000 years ago until now, which clearly it wasn't, 300,000 years is nothing compared to the billions of years in which planets, life, and advanced life could form. But then compare the last 200 years of technological and scientific advancement to the past hundreds of thousands of years of humanity. Imagine, assuming humanity survives, how advanced we will be in 1 billion years. You thought I would give some smaller number like 100 or 1000, but why not skip straight to the mind-melting figures? Because there could very well be civilizations out there that had around the same level of technology that we have now 1 billion years ago. Can you even imagine how advanced we or they could be in 1 billion years? We'll get to that. Before this third point of my argument, I think I have sufficiently explained why it is more than just audacious to assume we are the most technologically advanced intelligent life throughout all of the universe. It's ludicrous, let alone throughout all of space and time. Point number 4. It is impossible to set a cap on the highest level of technological advancement until omnipotence and omniscience is attained. I once more turn your attention to the growth we have undergone technologically and scientifically in the past 200 years, especially the past 100 years. I don't have to explain that the things that are possible now were considered impossibilities in science fiction by many, if not most, scientists over 100 years ago. I want you to do a thought experiment. You don't need to be a scientist to do it. Just ask yourself the simple question: what is the highest possible level of technological advancement humans could achieve, assuming we don't destroy ourselves or continually reset our progress with apocalyptic shenanigans? Now, whatever answer you came up with, are you certain that is the ceiling? That we could go no higher? You'll probably think to yourself, I don't know. And that's precisely my point. There is always more we don't know. That goes for all the scientists in the world. There is always more they don't know. The more we learn that we previously did not know, the closer we get to unlocking possibilities of progress we previously imagined to be impossible. It used to be going to the moon. Now it's ideas that seem farther out there, like surpassing the speed of light or time travel. They may seem like impossibilities now, but what about what we don't know? Now here I once again admit my limitations of time and expertise. I was going to delve into concepts like the Kardashev scale, the anti-Kardashev scale, quantum physics, theories for how to surpass the speed of light, time travel, etc. Maybe one day I will, but for this video, suffice it to say, scientists have repeatedly been proven wrong about what they have considered impossible. Whatever hard cap you can think of for what could be possible for humans to achieve, I'm positive there are more than one scientist out there with theories and ideas for how that hard cap is no more than a stepping stone that one day could be stepped over onto the next level of technological progress and manipulation of space and maybe even time. There have been countless discoveries that were made that opened up possibilities never dreamed of, and to assume we have made all of them, or know what all the discoveries could be, is silly. Point number 5. it is impossible to rule out the possibility that other intelligent life hasn't already attained omniscience and omnipotence, even if time travel is impossible. Now, I know this may seem ludicrous, impossible, but now I'm going to add my own twist to an argument that atheists often use to try to disprove creationism. Creationists often say something along the lines of, it is impossible for the complexity of the universe, of our planet, and life itself to have come about by pure chance. To which atheists often respond with something along the lines of, given the age of the universe and our understanding of the Big Bang, planetary formation, chemical reactions, evolution, etc., then however unlikely it would be for matter to react with other matter to create the complexity of the universe, our planet, and life itself, then yes, these things could have formed by pure chance. I'm not saying I am totally in either camp. That isn't the point. Anyways, allow me to put words in your mouth. You might say something like this. Even if we assume that it is possible for a civilization to attain omniscience, omnipotence, and transcend space and time, that would be so difficult and take so much time that it is impossible. To which I would say, well, if we assume that the complexity and order of our universe, our planet, and life itself came by chance over an incomprehensible, huge amount of time, then if it is possible for life to become that advanced, then at some point, over an incomprehensibly huge amount of time, it would happen eventually. Okay, so you might reply with this, if you don't mind some more words in your mouth. But the universe is only theorized to be about 13.8 billion years old. It might take trillions of years for that to happen. To which I would say, how do you know a billion years wouldn't be enough? Even just 1 billion years is an incomprehensible vast amount of time to us. Who knows how much progress could happen technologically in 1 billion years? What about 5 billion or 10 billion? What if it only took 13.7 billion years for that to happen? And what about the theories that the universe is 26.7 billion years old? And what about the theories that the Big Bang that created our universe was preceded by a previous universe? And the theories that some scientists have about civilizations becoming so advanced that they could survive the end of their universe? And the theories about it being possible to travel the multiverse, if it truly does exist? Also, what about the theories that what lies outside our observable universe is more universe that is simply unobservable because light doesn't reach it? And what about time travel? Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself, but all this I have said so far is without even considering time travel. But now let's consider time travel. Point number 6. If mastering time travel is possible, then whatever intelligent life masters it, even if it happens in the future, has access to all of time, including the past. Introducing time travel means that even if trillions of years into the future, some civilization gains mastery over time travel, they have access to all of time, including right here, right now. Duh. Obviously. I'm not even sure how much more I have to say about this point. Let me put this a different way. Regardless of when a civilization attains omniscience, omnipotence, and transcendence of space and time, once they attain it, that species has always existed and been present with the power that they have since the beginning of time. maybe even before the beginning of time. So if it's possible, no matter how long it takes, even if it hasn't already technically happened, it actually has happened already, technically. I'm not saying it has happened. I'm saying it's impossible to prove that it hasn't, or will, or is now. If your brain isn't mush yet, point 7 onward will take a bit of a different trajectory. If achieving that level of technological advancement is even possible, then it would require high standards for civilization, aka morals. Now, before you raise your metaphorical, intellectual pitchforks and start chanting in unison that morality is subjective, which I don't agree with, and even if one agrees upon good and evil existing, there are plenty of examples of evil civilizations becoming really powerful and technologically advanced, and there are almost certainly super evil alien civilizations out there. Allow me to hop on board my metaphorical intellectual flying saucer and escape this debate altogether by saying first and foremost something that I think is pretty logical and irrefutable. Before we delve into the idea of morality, let's just look at the idea of standards. In order to create or accomplish anything, certain standards must be met. Those standards could be a certain level of organization, dedication, planning, cooperation, diligence, etc. The more complex and difficult the thing you want to accomplish or create is, the more and more standards must be met. Even if you consider coincidences, like many claim abiogenesis to be, think about all the standards needed for that chemical soup to create the very simple first forms of life, which had the capacity to self-replicate and to slowly but surely evolve into higher levels of complexity. Those standards, for that to be able to happen, had to be plentiful and specific, or else abiogenesis wouldn't have happened and it would just be a yummy primordial chemical soup. So for a civilization to become so advanced in technological ability so as to be able to manipulate space and time to the degree where the vastness of all of space and time can be traversed and changed however they wanted, it is a given that without high standards of organization, dedication, planning, cooperation, diligence, etc., it wouldn't happen. Okay, I think that is something we can probably agree upon. Now, let's get into that word everyone loves, morality. Now, for the sake of another thought experiment, let me give you a specific definition for morality. This is just a way to see it. I know. Morality and ethics are complex, nuanced subjects that are probably impossible to deconstruct in one video. This is just one way to see it. Morality, or good, is that which increases the quality and quantity of life. Immorality, or evil, is that which does the opposite. So let's think of an example, shall we? Unrestrained contention and hostility. Look, I know there are times where it is necessary to contend and be hostile in order to preserve and improve life. I am talking about unrestrained contention and hostility, the kind that leads people to dedicate a significant portion of their time and energy towards hurting other people for reasons like, I don't like the way this person sees the world, even though they aren't a threat to my life. I don't think I need to explain why. Under my definition of morality that I gave earlier, this would be considered immoral. Imagine how much technological progress could be made if all the different countries of this world discarded their unrestrained contention and hostility with each other. Because unrestrained contention and hostility obviously get in the way of cooperation. if the best and brightest of each country put their heads together towards fixing problems and improving technology, that would certainly lead to more advanced technology, to say the least. Let's consider another immoral thing under my definition: forcing control over every aspect of life. Clearly, we need to enact certain aspects of the law with force, such as imposing capital punishment for threatening or destroying human life or stealing. But forcing people to agree with every one of your political opinions or religious beliefs, even if you feel certain that those opinions and beliefs are true, has consequences. Negative consequences. Negative consequences that lead to unrestrained contention and hostility, to say the least. What about if an alien species has a hive mind and doesn't have free will, you might say? Well, if that species ever became advanced enough to meet other advanced civilizations, they had better learn quick how to respect the free will of civilizations that are not hive minds, lest they have a case of rampant, unrestrained contention and hostility on their hands. I could go on, but I've spent enough time on this point as it is. The takeaway I want you to get from this is that the more technologically advanced a civilization becomes, the more important high standards and morals are. One nuclear bomb going off in a city is horrible. 100 nuclear bombs going off all over the world would be catastrophic. 1 million nuclear bombs going off would be apocalyptic. What might cause that to even happen? Unrestrained contention and hostility, aka immorality. Look at all kinds of things that some people call good and some people call evil. Consider them one at a time. Consider what that thing, whether or not you yourself consider it good or evil, would lead to on the scale of millions or billions of people doing it, and if they kept doing it for decades or centuries down the line. For this reason, I think if any civilization were to attain omniscience, omnipotence, and transcendence of space and time through the progression of technology, they would have to be compassionate, empathetic, and care about and seek the best for all life throughout all of space and time. We've seen that how a lack of these characteristics eventually leads to the downfall of civilizations. Look, I'm not saying that there isn't some tyrannical, cruel, and totalitarian alien civilization that has control over an entire galaxy or a cluster of galaxies out there, although I think it would be difficult for them to indefinitely maintain that power and control. But we are talking about total power, total knowledge. If such a state is even possible to achieve, then I really don't believe it would be possible to achieve, let alone maintain, if that civilization or form of life is tyrannical, cruel, and totalitarian, and doesn't respect free will, and doesn't have the characteristics of genuine concern and care for other life forms. Point number 8. An omniscient, omnipotent civilization with perfect morals would likely want to help all of life throughout all of space and time, and might even want to create new life and spark new universes. This is really a continuation of point 7, but it deserves to be expounded on by itself. Let's assume that if such a civilization with perfect morals really did become omniscient, omnipotent, transcend space and time, an individual of that civilization suddenly wanted to destroy all of life or destroy free will. First of all, because of the reasons I have already explained, I don't think that civilization could have attained that power with such immoral desires and objectives. But perhaps once that civilization becomes all-powerful, one of their own individuals could have such a viewpoint, especially since that civilization would probably respect free will. Does that mean the entire civilization would go along with that one evil individual? No, clearly not. And their power would almost certainly outweigh the power of that one individual. There's no way they would allow that individual to have the same access to omnipotent power as before. If they didn't outright destroy that individual, maybe that individual could still garner followers and splinter off into another powerful evil civilization, but they wouldn't have omniscience and omnipotence. I say all of this because I have already explained why I believe to attain that level of power, perfect morality is required, and now I have explained why I think that civilization would maintain perfect morality. I need to be clear here. I'm not saying that I believe that this is what God is or where God comes from. I don't believe I know the exact origins or nature of God. But in this thought experiment, if there is a civilization or conglomeration of civilizations that has omniscience, omnipotence, and transcendence of space and time, as well as perfect morals, they have the same functionality of God, a good God, the concept of God that many prescribe to. This is where I bring up the concept of proactively doing good versus only proactively avoiding evil. It isn't just that being devoid of immorality is essential to be able to attain and maintain that level of power. It's that the only kind of civilization that would seek out that level of power is one that proactively seeks and wants to do good in the universe and care for all of life throughout all of space and time. It's a matter of could versus would. Let me give you an analogy. There's two people. They began their lives poor, and through hard, honest work and investment became millionaires. One of them is content with donating to charities and seeking to improve the quality of life of their family and in their town, but they also really want to spend most of their time enjoying their life through recreational activities. They have more than enough money. They can live the lifestyle they want, so they don't really have the drive to become wealthier than they are now, just to maintain their wealth. They have enough. And I'm not saying that is evil. That person is a good person. But the other person has the genuine desire to help everyone on the entire planet. So they do seek to attain more wealth and become a billionaire. Not like other corrupt billionaires who seek that level of wealth out of greed and hunger for control, but out of a desire to have as much capacity as possible to help as many people as possible. So they do seek out more wealth, more power, but because they want to do good. It isn't a perfect analogy, but I think it gets the job done. That's why, for this reason, I believe that this benevolent, omniscient, omnipotent civilization that transcends space and time, that is interchangeable with the concept of God, would seek the well-being of every form of life throughout all of space and time. In fact, I think they would create new life and spark new big bangs to create new universes, because their compassion would run so deep that they would not only want to give all of life the opportunity to experience the fullest joy possible, they would seek to give all the possibility of life the opportunity to become life, so that new life could have the same opportunity. It's the same reason why many people become parents. They don't just do it because of instinct or because they want to show off their kids. Some people, sure. But some people also do it because they want to create children, so those children have the opportunity to experience the joy and fulfillment they've experienced, if not more. It's no coincidence God is called our Father by so many people, because they understand this truth, either on a philosophical level or because God really did reveal it to them. But parents don't just want their kids to be happy. They want them to become as happy, if not more happy, than they are, and learn all the things they've learned. Similarly, if this godlike civilization has immortality, I think it would be a given that they would want to gift that immortality to all of life that desires and deserves it throughout all of space and time, without interrupting the natural flow of people's lives. I don't know how they would. Maybe they would use some advanced tech to reconstruct their bodies and make those bodies immortal and indestructible. Or something like they go back in time to the moment before they die, reverse their aging, and then keep doing that. I really don't know. But the point is, a godlike civilization would certainly have the ability to do that. Now, I will address, without delving too deeply into the, well, then why does God, or why would this theoretical godlike civilization allow evil to happen? This is a good question. I won't address it too deeply, because that deserves its own video. But I will remind you that forcing people to do good and never make mistakes isn't good, and is a mistake. I know that this isn't sufficient enough to address the question, but I might address it more at a later time in a different video. Point number 9. I'm not saying God is/comes from an omnipotent, omniscient alien civilization, but if you do deny the traditional concept of God, science is no longer an excuse to dismiss any concept of God. I once again reiterate, I'm not saying I believe that this is what God is. I am not a Scientologist, and I'm not saying that this is what Scientologists believe. I honestly don't really know what Scientologists believe, no matter how many times it's explained to me, but I do know that one of the points of me making this video is that scientists can believe in God without forsaking science, and that science doesn't contradict God, not even evolution, nor the Big Bang, nor abiogenesis. I think it proves the inevitability of God. Now listen, again, I'm not saying I believe this is where God comes from. I think it could be, but I don't know. But I do know that no matter how much people want to say that the traditional concept of God is impossible because of science, they cannot say that science makes every concept of God impossible. Think of it as a safety net of reason for your belief in God to fall back on in case you ever feel your faith waning. Listen, I know some of y'all who believe in God are so sure of your faith that you never have to battle doubt or reconcile your faith with reason. Honestly, good for you. There are times when I have felt like that. But there are times where I have worried that my belief in God is no better than a belief in Santa Claus, or in other words, wishful thinking. Wishful thinking that is easily disproved, with no solid basis in reality. Now I know the traditional concept of God is not as easily disproved as Santa Claus. It isn't nearly the same. I'll get to that in the next point. But the point of this point is that there are times when some creationist viewpoints, held by some, really don't seem to meld well with scientific viewpoints. Again, I'm not saying all of science is right. End of story. But I don't think it's wise to deny every bit of science that disagrees with our religious viewpoints, when there is a mountain of evidence pointing towards it. There are some creationists that insist the world was created in 6 24-hour days, and the earth is only 6,000 years old, and evolution is completely false, and the Bible is perfect without any flaws, and anything that contradicts these viewpoints is blasphemy to be totally rejected from their rigid worldview. I am a creationist Christian believer in God, in Jesus Christ, who isn't afraid to consider possibilities about the nature of our reality that may not fit with all of my preconceived notions. I'm not a strict materialist. I believe there is a spiritual, metaphysical aspect to reality that cannot be understood solely through reason. But I also do believe that there is a material, ordered, scientific system to reality. I don't really believe God can be easily summed up as coming from a godlike civilization that used to be a normal civilization which emerged from a godless universe through the use of technology. I'm saying that the ideas that the Big Bang, the scientific view of how our planet was formed, abiogenesis, evolution, etc., are not smoking guns that soundly disprove God and religion. I think that if these concepts existed in a godless universe, they would lead to the inevitable formation of God, which, if a godlike civilization transcended space and time, they technically would have always existed, and you could never go back far enough to a point in the past where they didn't exist. So technically, even then, there would have never been such a thing as a godless universe. So think about it this way. It's important to be open to the idea of a metaphysical, spiritual, perhaps even magical nature to reality that can't be easily explained by science and reason. It is important to be open to the possibility that the nature of God is a mystery that we cannot currently comprehend with our mortal minds. But if you do decide to not be open to these realities, this argument I have put forward means, at least in my opinion, that even if you are certain you are right in your rejection of metaphysical, spiritual, magical possibilities, you can't be certain there is no God, or godlike civilization, or supreme intelligence that seeks to communicate with you and improve your life. And if you can open yourself up to that possibility, perhaps you can start to seek to communicate with this godly supreme intelligence and start having some experiences that make it difficult for you to reject the possibility of something more spiritual and metaphysical, like many of us believers have. But before I get into that, I present my second to last point. You may deny the traditional concept of God, but you can't disprove it. Denying an omnipotent being, regardless of origin, requires becoming one. This may seem like a bit of a weird one, but let me explain. At the end of the day, you cannot dismiss a more traditional, spiritual, metaphysical, maybe even magical view of God, and therefore of reality, because you don't know everything. The same goes for this argument of God I have presented with evolution and abiogenesis being the origin. Let me dig into this a little bit more. It may seem like everything we know about science dismisses such notions, which I don't think it does, and I am sure there are arguments many scientists would make to also agree with me that I don't think it does, but even if it did, there may be truths about reality that we just have no idea exist because we have no way of perceiving them at all. Not in the traditional, measurable, scientific idea of perceiving. A simple example is that we can't view cells without a microscope. There's all kinds of things we can't perceive without some sort of instrument. What if there are things about reality that we can't perceive with any instrument at all? Or at least without any instrument we'll have access to in the next million years. As the saying goes, we don't know what we don't know. How can we ever be certain that we know everything? How do we know God isn't hiding around the next corner of mystery? The question isn't, why would God hide? It's not a bad question, but the question I'm asking is, how do you know he isn't? The only way that you can have absolute certainty that there is no God, that there is no omniscient, omnipotent being, regardless of what you think the nature of said being might be, whether it be magical or rational, is by knowing all there is to know. Isn't that what omniscience is? How can one know all there is to know without being able to manipulate and interact with every aspect of reality? Isn't that what omnipotence is? So, ironically, perhaps by design, the only way to know for certain an omniscient, omnipotent being does not exist is to become an omniscient, omnipotent being yourself, at which point it would be impossible to prove that an omnipotent, omniscient being doesn't exist, because you would be one. So it seems that if God, or this godlike civilization, does exist, which I believe God does exist, the vast majority of us aren't yet meant to have a total, complete scientific knowledge that God exists with no room for doubt. We are meant to have faith, not blind faith. We can use reason the way I have with this argument, whether or not we like it. We can have spiritual experiences and feelings of certainty that feel more true than mere intellectual understanding. But the focus of this video isn't on that. So, whether God is of a mysterious, spiritual, metaphysical, self-existent nature that can't be comprehended at our current state, or God comes from an ascendant, godly civilization, or some combination of both, remember this: knowing God isn't real requires becoming godlike, literally. Point 11. It would be wise to be humbly open-minded to the possibility of God and or other forms of intelligent life in the universe that may have a nature far different from our own, and to seek to make contact with the highest form of intelligence in the universe. Let's read the headings of each of the main points again. Point number 1. We exist. We are intelligent, even if you only believe in the current secular understanding of the origin of humanity, including evolution and abiogenesis. Point number 2. Given all of space and time, which is incomprehensibly vast, and that we exist, other intelligent life must have existed, does exist, or will exist. Point number 3. It is audacious to assume that we are the most technologically advanced intelligent life throughout all of space and time. Point number 4. It is impossible to set a cap on the highest level of technological advancement until omnipotence and omniscience is attained. Point number 5. It is impossible to rule out the possibility that other intelligent life hasn't already attained omniscience and omnipotence, even if time travel isn't possible. Point number 6. If mastering time travel is possible, then whatever intelligent life masters it, even if it happens in the future, has access to all of time, including the past. Point number 7. If achieving that level of technological advancement is even possible, then it would require high standards for civilization, aka morals. Point number 8. An omniscient, omnipotent civilization with perfect morals would likely want to help all of life throughout all of space and time, and might even want to create new life and spark new universes. Point number 9. I'm not saying God is / comes from an omnipotent, omniscient alien civilization, but if you do deny the traditional concept of God, science is no longer an excuse to dismiss any concept of God. Point number 10. Even then, you may deny the traditional concept of God, but you can't disprove it. Denying an omniscient, omnipotent being, regardless of origin, requires becoming one. Which brings us to point 11. It would be wise to be humbly open-minded to the possibility of God and or other forms of intelligent life in the universe. They may have a nature far different from our own, and to seek to make contact with the highest form of intelligence in the universe. If there is one takeaway I want you to get from this video, it's to seek to make contact with the highest form of intelligence in the universe. You have to at least accept points 1, 2, and 3, that we aren't alone and we aren't the smartest. For all we know, the smartest out there wants to talk to us. From a purely practical perspective, wouldn't it be a good idea to try to talk back? No matter how silly that may sound, what do you have to lose? Feeling silly? For all you know, perhaps you'll receive a greater flow of intelligence, more inspiration in your mind, or a feeling and emotion you've never experienced before, and you won't feel it until you try to make contact with the smartest intelligence in the universe. Because the smartest intelligence in the universe is waiting for you to make contact before it gives you that experience. You can ask, why would it wait until I make contact? That's fine. But I ask you, why would you let your asking stop you from making contact? What do you have to lose? Billions of people profess the transformative power of prayer, and you can deny their explanation for that power. You can deny it, but you can't deny the results. And you can't disprove that those results were indeed influenced by a higher power. You can make a scientific, psychological explanation for those results. Sure, some of them, but that still doesn't deny that God could have influenced that with the power of science. With all the reasons I have explained, all the points I have presented to you, the smartest intelligence in the universe could be much, much smarter, wiser, and benevolent than you think. We know that we, as intelligent beings, exist, which is miraculous, incredible, awe-inspiring. Use whatever adjective you want, hopefully positive. We don't understand every aspect of the universe, whether it is purely materialistic and rational, or metaphysical and spiritual, or a combination of both, which I think is likely the case. But either way, we know other benevolent, intelligent life that is smarter and wiser has to exist out there. Now, the reason I'm not telling you to just make contact with aliens in general or angels in general is because I think that anything short of trying to make contact with the smartest and most benevolent intelligence of the universe is risky. But ultimately, you have the choice of what to do after watching this video. But I would suggest that you stew on the points I have made in this video. Open yourself up to the possibility that God or a supreme intelligence exists. Find a quiet place and talk to God. Say whatever you honestly feel like saying to the supreme intelligence that is God. Call God whatever you want. I suggest being respectful. Even just from a practical perspective, that's a good idea. And then ask what God wants to share with you. You can call God the smartest intelligence in the universe. You can call it the supreme intelligence. Call it God, whatever. Be open to the possibility, after this, that a thought could enter your mind, a feeling could enter your heart, or some other person could share something with you that comes from God. Don't just do it once. Make a routine out of it. Put a reminder on your phone to do it every day. The results may take time to manifest or be noticed. But what do you have to lose? If you don't at least try, you stand to potentially lose a lot, to say the least. If it is difficult for you to believe in the traditional concept of God, then consider this concept of God I have proposed in this video. I am of the mind that any belief in a good benevolent God that encourages you to do good and be moral is better than none. So if this video helps even one person seek to talk to and listen to God, then I'll feel like making this video was worth it. But although this video doesn't encompass all the reasons I believe in God, making it certainly was worth it for me, because this argument for God that you may not have considered before is one I consider frequently and bolsters my faith with reason. Keep an eye out for future videos. I'm thinking the next video will be about religion. Until then, I hope you enjoyed my explanation for why I believe evolution and abiogenesis prove the inevitability of God.